Welcome to Casual Watch Talk. On this week's show, we discuss Paul Thorpe's recent interview with Anthony from the Timepiece Gentleman. Casio finally makes an all-metal CasiOak. Fears celebrates 175 years, and we discuss the best Seiko watches from the 1980s. Welcome back to the show. You're joined by Sam and Chris. Chris, how have you been?
Excellent. Got a little bit of rain yesterday, so a little bit of beat the heat. We're getting into August here, so
yeah, it's warming up here in Florida as well. Well, should we roll into the first story that we're going to talk about? And this is the recent interview that Paul Thorpe did with Anthony from the Timepiece Gentleman. Did you manage to catch it, Chris?
yeah, Sam, I caught a little bit of it, but not too much. I kind of, as we've discussed, want to stay a little bit out of the watch drama that we make, but certainly something to cover here on our show.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm going to be on Paul Thorpe's show this week. Hopefully I'll get this podcast out before I do that. Yeah, we won't go on about it too much, honestly, and as always, the shows are chaptered here, but it is worth mentioning because it is watch news. I thought that Paul actually did a good job. I know a lot of people, and even he feels like he could have done a better job. He had some technical issues with his AirPod headphones. I can totally relate to this because I used to demo software, quite complex software for a living when I first moved over to the US. In fact, for one of the top 14 companies in the world, they had a very complicated platform. And I can tell you, even the slightest technical issue, usually, Chris, I'm sure you get this at your work, it's the projector. That the projector messes up your resolution, especially if you're trying to show that full screen. So I can understand there's an argument maybe you should have had a backup pair of wireless headphones. But again, Paul's not a professional interviewer. I think, honestly, I feel like he needs to be cut a lot of slack because people wanted to hear from Anthony. Anthony probably wouldn't have done that interview if it wasn't for Paul Thorpe because they're friends, or he said that they're kind of internet friends. They've never met in person. And all the questions that Paul Thorpe had sent through to him were from people who'd emailed him in. And he'd done a lot of background work, which people aren't doing credit for. Anybody that had claimed that Anthony owed them money, he followed it down, asked for evidence, and he couldn't really find anyone. Maybe there was one person where a wire had fallen through or something, or the guy didn't have PayPal. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess I thought he did a decent job. Key highlights, I would say, from the interview were Anthony explained that it snowballed, which we called it, didn't we, Chris? That
right? Yeah, yeah, it got out of hand quick.
Yeah, so they'd intended to do the blackout. They'd intended to do this social media blackout, but by the Tuesday, by the time that article had come out, it had got unwieldy, right? It had gone way out of hand, and he said that even Marco had been called by the police chasing up to see what happened. But then, I think Anthony's issue then was he got in love with the attention that was happening, so he doubled down on it. So he's like, no, we're seeing this through. And then that's obviously when...
There's like SWAT outside. They've got the building cordoned off. The helicopters are flying overhead. They're calling... The phone with the police is calling on the thing, and they're like... And like YouTube, everyone on YouTube is calling, and they're like, hold on, I got this. You know, you're like, oh, it's too much. It's too much.
And he did explain that they'd fully planned the charity work. I think we have to believe him on that. I know we thought that it might have been an afterthought. I think they totally underestimated the snowball effect that this had happened. I mean, Paul Thorpe said it right. You would have thought Anthony had killed somebody. The way that people were reacting to it, and I can understand people that were invested in the show. They invested a lot of time in their show, and their shows are in excess of an hour long. So you are spending a lot of time following these guys. So I can understand people getting upset, quite the level that some people went to with it, broadcasted their addresses and stuff like that. I think is beyond the pale, really. But other thing that I thought was confusing is he doubled down and said that he definitely didn't forewarn anyone. He didn't forewarn Paul. He didn't forewarn Roman or Nico or anyone, and that really didn't make sense to me because I think he should have done because you need to ask advice from people that are more experienced than you, and he's ended up possibly sullying a lot of relationships and trust for trying to be a bit too clever with his marketing.
Yeah. Especially if he's dragging those people in or talking about those people, or like there's references or that he's, known associates, this kind of thing. I felt, like there was no stop, in the way that he doubled down, but there was also no stopgap for him to say like, hey, does this seem like a good idea? And none of his associates are like, no, that's not a good idea, but it was too late.
He said that he does have a mentor but I don't think he would have asked his mentor about that advice. Maybe he did. A few interesting highlights were this $2,000 membership that he had. The question that Paul asked was, were the people that asked for a refund get a refund? And he said, yes, I've started refunding them. Apparently, he had 300 people who paid $2,000 to be part of this club.
Yeah.
What's happened afterwards is he's then, since his mentor's given him some advice, and it sounds like they're going to shut the whole thing down. So everybody's going to get their money back.
Okay, interesting.
And they're not going to roll it into a big store and stuff like that.
Yeah. We're in the wrong. I think we're in the wrong market, Sam. We need to start a Patreon and start making pizzas on YouTube.
Yeah, our Patreon pizza channel.
Patreon pizza channel. With the top five things to do with pizza. I'm sure we'll collect more of an audience, but it's in that way. I see this media changing. I see the demographic changing. I see the attention spans changing, and it's interesting what will fly, what won't, and how you have groups of audiences who are willing to watch this stuff and pay money to see this stuff. So the ever changing attention span of humans.
I know that some people won't be happy, I guess, until they shut their business down and then be done with it. I wish them luck. I think as we said last time, they're just going to have to just keep pumping out quality content. They have released 2 videos since that, and they were certainly more humble. They were definitely more watch focused. They were definitely more about how they do their deals and things like that, about how they do the business. So I think that's the avenue that they're going down.
That's perfect. And that matches up with what we definitely said, which is like, we just need quiet, quality watch content without any of the mirror facing drama of the watch community.
Well, let's dive into the news now, the watch news. So first story I had, Chris, which I thought was really interesting, is did you see Jeff Bezos's recent race to space that he had with Richard Branson, although he claimed that he went actually further into space?
Yes, they were a little back and forth on that, depending on your definition of the Kármán line, yes.
Well, did you know that actually Jeff Bezos did use Speedmasters for that?
Oh.
So apparently they had this Speedmaster Blue Origin. There was nothing unique about the reference of the watch except, and they haven't got a picture of it here, I'm showing an article from Fratello Watches for our audio listeners. Apparently the back was engraved with the Blue Origin logo, and they had this custom Velcro band. They haven't got a lot of pictures on Fratello Watches. You can sort of see it there. Apparently, there isn't a photo of this, but the Fratello Watches also reported that they were wearing 2 watches, Speedmaster Professional, and they were wearing the Skywalker, which I know is a fan favorite of ours, isn't it?
Oh, so they actually had both the sort of the legacy and the current space watch on.
Yeah, and now I don't fully understand. What were they in space for, like 15 minutes or something?
4 odd minutes, yeah.
Yeah, 4.
Something like that. Yeah, I think it's what was it? Branson was 4, they were 8. It's just a short, a few minutes longer than whatever you would get on the 0G plane, like about a minute and a half on the 0G plane. So you're like good 4.5 minutes or something like that. But yeah, exactly. Like, well, I mean, you could time it without, not too bad. I think there was a lot of ceremony to both of those. A lot of people commented that in this, in the space nerd area that I follow, that it was sort of like an award show. At the end, they're like, oh, yeah, you went to space. And then they're like clipping pins on everybody. And everyone's like, what? Everybody gets astronaut wings now? Is that what you just spend $250,000 and just, there you go, like this? And then there was like the whole comment of like, well, you flew a plane to space. Well, I drove a rocket to space. And you're like, guys, it's a rocket plane. Like, it goes to space. Like, like what are we with the two watches or with any of the watches that they wore? It kind of goes down to that, like how I compared it. We were talking to some friends, and how I compared it to is this feels like the next Mount Everest for rich people. So Mount Everest has turned into, I mean, if you have the money, you just pay the money. I don't know what the current rate is. Let's say, $50,000, whatever it is. And you scale that mountain. Of course you have to, of course there's some physical, that you have to do, but all the stuff, all the stuff is provided for you. The Sherpa, the tents. Yeah, exactly. Like the planning, the radios, the mountain, when to go, when not to go, the advice, the climbing gear, that's all provided to you. And you just have to show up. And yes, there is some physical aspect to it. Obviously you have to be fit enough to make it. I granted it is a physical, physical feat, but it's starting to feel like it's just the next pay your money and get to the top and look, I'm on the top of the world and take a picture. So there's a lot of like the astronaut wings that you get when you make that flight, so there's a lot of apparently the FAA just changed the rules on how that is given out for commercial flights. So like they're expecting like hundreds of people to now get these, I've been to space wings. And it definitely changes the dynamic of we are conquering the edge of an unknown universe. And you brought this cool watch, in order so that like if something happened, this was like truly a tool. This like the Speedmaster on the moon, truly a backup clock, for the flight computer. And now you're changing it to like you're giving everybody
like jewelry, space jewelry.
Yeah, space jewelry. You're kind of giving everybody that feeling. So I see both of them be like, well, this one went to space and this one went to space. This one's on eBay and this one I'll keep or something. So.
Yeah. Well, what was funny as well is I must have had wearing two watches on the brain because I watched. Have you ever seen this awful film with Val Kilmer in it and Marlon Brando called The Island of Dr. Moreau? It's been made a couple of times, but the most recent one was made in 1996.
I can't say that I have.
And the only reason that I bring this up is because I was watching it the other day and I happened to notice in there that Val Kilmer was wearing two what looked like either Citizen or Seiko watches in it. It was like the most bizarre film, and then suddenly there's Val Kilmer wearing two watches in it.
With like Velcro, with like Speedmaster Velcro straps.
Well, the thing with it is that the film itself he's supposed to be verging on crazy in it. And I don't know whether, so the way that he dresses is quirky and so on. So I don't know whether they were trying to indicate that he was a little bit weird or a little bit out there by having two watches on it. It never fully explained why he wore two watches in it, but I just thought that was hilarious because you had to watch Jeff Bezos in his Blue Origin with his two watches and then an awful film with Val Kilmer in it. But Anyway. Before we dive into the rest of the news, we've got a sponsor for this week, Chris. We are sponsored very kindly by the folks over at Chrono24. I use Chrono24 quite a lot. In fact, just let me show you this just to prove it. I've currently got a watch here on Chrono24. I've used it several times. Chris, have you ever used Chrono24?
I use it for research, but I definitely have been tempted to list with them.
Yeah, I find so they sponsor this show, but I find their listing very easy to use. Just a couple of words about them themselves. The platform has new and vintage and used watches on there. They have this trusted checkout, which is kind of like an escrow system. So you pay the money, and then when the buyer receives the watch or you receive the watch from the seller and you confirm it, they then release that money. So it's a fully secured checkout system. And they have a customer service that is in 22 different languages as well. So you can actually ring them.
And I often see a lot of watches that are from different countries. So good to know that you can get kind of support in any of those languages.
I also like the fact that they have that graph that shows you the trend of prices. So you can see the watch and then you can actually see what it sold for over that period of time.
Yeah.
Check it out, guys, and a big thanks for Chrono24 sponsoring the show this week. Well, let's continue on. One thing, Chris, that I thought you might find amusing is that Watch Pro cited some research that was done. So it looks like Rolex continues to be top of the list for the most searched terms for fake things. So apparently, fake Rolex was searched 228,000 times last year. So fake Rolex searches were almost twice as much as second place Louis Vuitton, which generated 118,000 entries. So Gucci came in third. So if you see this top 20, you've got fake Rolex, fake Louis Vuitton, fake Gucci, Yeezys, Crocs. Who would fake Crocs?
What? Oh, God.
I know. Fake Nike,
First of all,
Balenciaga.
don't do that. And then second of all, like, what are they? They're not that expensive.
It just goes to show what we've been talking about recently. They're just this prevalence of fake Rolexes and people reviewing real versus fake Rolexes as well.
Yeah, and we had a great. I won't get too far into it, but we had a great discussion over on our Facebook group. So if you're not a member of our Facebook group, definitely check us out. Ask to join. And we had a great discussion that was kind of talking about everything in between, that gray area that exists between literally fake and the real article, and the like design, the design homage, the copies, the cheap, and just the whole rank. And good discussion, definitely on people's minds. It's certainly what surprises me is, now in the modern era that we are living in, that you wouldn't want the real thing. I mean, it's strange. Sam, you and I mentioned a couple of times this weird like 1980s TV trope of the guy in the raincoat with the Rolexes and fake Rolexes selling stuff on the streets in New York, that kind of thing, these like cheap knockoffs. And yeah, it's just strange to me.
There's a fascinating documentary on Netflix. The name is completely can't remember the name, but I'll flash it up here so that people can see it. And it was all about how Nobler, very famous New York gallery, got totally duped into buying expressionist art that had been faked. What was interesting was the forger, when they actually, this isn't a spoiler alert, they say it in the first 10 minutes, the forger who was making these artworks by Jackson Pollock and so on was Chinese. And it goes into a bit of the history about how in ancient Chinese culture, it was the highest form of praise to copy somebody. So if you copied an artist, not only were you showing off your skills, but also you were paying homage, I guess, to that artist. And they're saying that is a cultural thing that has spread now even to like fake watches and stuff like that. It was really interesting because I'd never really thought about why is China the main epicenter for fake watches.
Yeah, and that really that explains a bunch of stuff, because their manufacturing processes, they'll just make copies of cars. I mean, car parts, and it was only until recently where the economies of scale and the technical evolution of not only their watchmaking and their manufacturing, where it's like, now we'll just have them make it because they're so good at that, that copy sort of thing. That's fascinating.
Let's have a little bit of a break before we dive into the rest of the news, and let's do another thrilling episode of Hit or Miss. This week on Hit or Miss, we don't normally do watches that are just so out there like this or so out there in price, but I couldn't help but I'm a big fan of graffiti art. graffiti artists. This is another one from Jacob & Co. And they've teamed up with Alec Monopoly. Now, this Alec Monopoly is a famous graffiti artist. There's a great mural that I saw in Austin the other week. If I can find a picture, I'll show it up here. Alec Monopoly has actually done collabs with Tag Heuer before, but they've done this absolutely insane collaboration where, if you can see, he's got a lot of his main characters. So he's got Scrooge McDuck there. He's got his Monopoly man.
Monopoly
he's
guy,
got his. They've done this incredible video. So it's this style that they go for with the spinning earth.
Oh, okay. So it's based on one of their movements, and they've kind of added these characters that also. And the Monopoly guy, is that Richie Rich as the Monopoly guy? Is that the thing?
Yeah, do you know what? I think he does use Richie Rich. So maybe this is Richie Rich.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the Monopoly guy as a sort of a Lego character or something, and then
funny.
you've got Richie Rich with the wings of money there. But
oh goodness,
$600,000, it's yours.
Okay.
I noticed a Jacob & Co. I think I've noticed a Jacob & Co. on a very famous in the financial scene on YouTube. I think he wears one of these, but anyway, what...
I mean, Scrooge McDuck. I mean, you had me at Scrooge McDuck, right? Oh, goodness. Completely hilarious. I mean, as an art piece, I'm going to say a miss.
I think it's quirky for sure. I think if you were going to go for a Jacob & Co. one, and if you like this style and you were going to go for a Jacob & Co. one, I think that one he did with The Godfather, with the where it's got the music box inside that plays the Godfather logo, or the Scarface one.
Yeah.
I think you can't fault him for not trying new things, I think.
I know. This weird crossover, like we were talking about, like this weird crossover between art and watchmaking, and like how, where is that line? That's certainly pushing that line.
Well, let's carry on here. This totally flew under the radar for me, and I don't know if you spotted this, Chris, but did you know that Hamilton Khaki Field watch comes in? They've made it in bronze. Have you seen this?
What? I feel like I did, but I'm not. I'm gonna. Okay, yeah, all right. That's. I thought I saw it pop up on Instagram, but it didn't resonate with me. I didn't realize it was what it was. So this is the Khaki Field hand wind in bronze. And then we'll ask the Chris metallurgy nerdy question: stabilized bronze or patina?
Yeah, it doesn't actually say it, I don't think. It just says that it has a titanium case back with soft brown leather NATO. Each bronze case will develop its own individual patina based on environmental exposure.
So
allow the patina to develop for a unique look. You may use a microfiber cloth. I think it looks okay. I've got a feeling it's a lot more expensive than the standard version one. I've got a feeling they've got it at $825 there, but I feel like the normal one
$600.
No, I feel like the normal
regular
one
mechanical.
I feel like it's. I mean, these are list prices, aren't they? That's the one thing with Hamilton is you just would go to Joma Shop or something to.
So there
you go.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
The standard one they've listed at $525.
$525. Okay. Fine. So $300.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth it for the extra for the bronze?
I mean, you'd have to really like. bronze. Are we post? So right now, what I noticed the other day, I don't know if you noticed this, but a lot of green dial watches lately. Bunch of green dials showing up, and it seems to be like making a bit of a resurgence. Is it to that end? Is bronze over? Are we over bronze watches, and then now we're into green dial?
Yeah,
I wonder.
Maybe Tudor reboosted it with their recent bronze watch.
Oh, true. Yeah. I mean, it felt like about 2 years ago. It felt like it was a serious like bronze fad, because we had Oris, we had a bunch of companies were coming out with these bronze divers, and then it just got to the point where like, you could get Seiko mod cases in bronze, which is super cool if you want to go that route. And so, yeah, maybe it just kind of faded away a little bit, and then they were like, well, this is an option. People another metal that we can make it out of. So certainly smart for Hamilton to do that, especially with that model. Very easy for them to do. Like Seiko could totally do that and pick up.
Yeah, they've never done what Seiko haven't done one, have they yet?
I don't think so. I don't think they have.
Or Citizen.
Yeah, kind of stayed out of that market. I can't think of a. Yeah, I mean they definitely. I mean they titanium, and then different materials, but yeah, it's kind of stayed out of the bronze. So that would be interesting to see. But yeah, I think 300 seems a little much for that now that but it seems like a special edition. We have to find some long-term bronze wearing, viewers and get them on the show.
There's a few on the Facebook group.
Yeah. So we want to see, post them up in the Facebook group. We want to see long-term bronze. We want to see like what the patina looks like. What are these? What can't you, what are you afraid to do with them? What do you do? Or you do everything with them, that sort of stuff. Interesting material, and certainly, it takes on its own little story, which is great.
Yeah. Next story. This is pretty cool. I think Casio lately has been one of those brands that seems to just be listening to their fans. So they made the CasiOak G-Shock. It was a resin watch, and then just a horde of modders were like, this will look amazing in metal. So they started adding the aftermarket metal cases. Well, soon to be out now. I can't find any US retailers that have got this at the moment, but they're going to be making their own metal CasiOak. Now, I know they've got metal watches that look like this already with that kind of octagonal thing, but this is the one that the fans nickname the CasiOak. So the only shame with it is it hasn't got a metal bracelet on it, but they've got this grey version. There's also one with a red dial and a blue dial as well. So what do you think of this, Chris?
It looks good. It's funny that like these have grown on me. When this first came out, people were like turning them into CasiOaks, and they're like, we put the metal case on them, whatever. But like seeing more of them, and like this is growing on me. And I'm sure with that strap, I'm sure the aftermarket strap is impending, is on its way, is immediately going to be available to add to this. I think it's cool. It definitely it's a style that's kind of grown on me. I saw some of the new ones too. The colors look kind of funky, and as a fun, sort of summertime, going to the amusement park, kind of, those colors are great.
I've bought one of those aftermarket cases I've talked about it on the show before, for my DW 5600. And they're getting really good with those now at the moment. These aftermarket bracelets and aftermarket bezels they're making for these Casio watches, the machining's got a lot better than a few years ago when I had a look at them for sure. Well, let's move on to another friend of the show, and that is Nicholas over at Fears Watch Company. So Fears, the brand, is going to be turning 175 years old. It's one of the oldest British brands, and apparently to celebrate he's going to be releasing a limited edition watch, but he's also releasing this book. So this will be available on Amazon soon, but if you're a watch fan, he hasn't said what the price will be. He's got Dr. Roger Smith to do the forward for him, but it looks like just an incredible journey through the 175 years of the Fears brand. So it goes all through the history, and then he's got some of the pictures of the watches that he's found. Fears is such an interesting British brand. It was shut down in the 70s, and then Nicholas himself, who is the fourth managing director, he calls himself, brought the brand back to life. It was a passion project, and he's turned it into quite an amazing British brand that I think anyone who's English can be very, very proud of.
I follow on Instagram, and I delight at the artifacts that he finds. Whether, we saw some of those sort of in the pages there, whether it's a dial from a watch, but then just the receipts and the marketing and the paper slips that they, used to put in the boxes and things like that. And just that, to really capture, to take a snapshot and revive that brand and say, this is what this was like 100 years ago, when someone would come into our watch shop down on the street and purchase a timepiece from us. It's really cool.
Fratello's Watches did an interesting article on the Seikos from the 1980s that you should know. So I thought it'd be interesting, Chris, if we went through this and see if there's any that you recognize, any that we might have owned in the past.
I know, right? Or seen in the past. Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, there's a few. So the first one they've got on here is the famous James Bond one that Roger Moore wore in The Spy Who Loved Me, and this was the Seiko H3575040. It looks quite dated now, don't you? Although I think that style's coming back in fashion. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like an Annie Digi sports watch, kind of integrated bracelet, the little screws on it. I mean, at the time that, it's funny, they get the lotus in the background and it's certainly a piece of its time, a piece of history, a snapshot of history.
I know it seems weird, doesn't it, that looking back on that James Bond wore a Seiko when he's so commonly associated these days with Omega and then with the Rolex, that the Roger Moore years were really the Seiko years. And
that's right.
I don't know. Yeah, it still seems a bit weird to me, but as a gadget, especially that one in Octopussy where he had the TV camera on it.
Yeah.
The next one they had on here as well is the original tuner. So the original golden tuner here, quartz one. So this is the Seiko, reference number is the Seiko 7C467009, the golden tuner. They've recently released this. I like the look of this. I wouldn't seek out a vintage one. I think some of them were quartz, weren't they? And
yeah, I wouldn't go for a the new one's fairly similar style. They really kept the style of that shroud.
Yeah, and they did do they did a limited edition one, as they always do, which was very expensive, and then they did one that they were selling for like $300 that looks very similar. I mean, the hands were slightly different, but yeah, I've never owned a tuner though. Have you ever owned one of the tuners?
No, it's a very unique. I think it's like a. I mean, when I see it, it's very diver focused. So I just missed my my attention.
For anyone that's not Seiko minded, it's called the tuner because it looks like a tuna can. That it's not actually to do with the tuna in the sea for diving.
Yeah,
it's not that deep. It's not that
we
meta.
Nicknamed it the can. Yeah, the tuna can. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then the next one, Chris, the very famous, and it seems now very valuable, original, again a nickname, the Ripley.
Yep, the Ripley from Aliens. Classic. This is another one of those styles that you're like, were people actually wearing these? and then you look at pictures, look at old pictures of the 80s, and it's like people in the bright pink windbreaker with the fanny pack and the Seiko chronograph on it, like all modern style. It's pretty funny. What
is cool about this watch is obviously Aliens is set many hundreds of years, I think, in the future. And this watch, I mean, they made a modern interpretation of this, don't they? TGV's got one. And I think that even the modern one looked great. I mean, they made a couple of different versions of it, different colorways, because there's also the Bishop one as well. So the character, the robot, the android in it, Bishop. I mean, this one, even if you've got one of the modern ones, they're only going up in price. And I think even the modern ones, they did a great interpretation of it as well, Seiko. I think Seiko is very respectful of their own designs, unlike Bulliver. I don't think Bulliver, not their moon watch, but I don't think they've done a good job of some of their reissues. They've made them massive or
I think you're right. As far as like staying true to the style and staying true to the size.
We've got, of course, you can't leave the 80s without the Seiko H558 5000, the Arnie, which again they've reissued, haven't they, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. Schwarzenegger.
I know.
I'll be back.
He wore this in
Predator,
Predator,
films,
Commando,
right? Yeah.
Raw Deal, Running Man, and
Running
Twins.
Man.
It says here.
Oh wow, and Twins. Oh god, there's some good there. Running Man. I just had a movie flashback. All right, yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. It reminds me.
I like Running Man.
Oh, it's great. It's very. It was written by Stephen King.
Was it?
It wasn't. Yeah, the original concept of it.
When the Super Nintendo came out, they had that game that was loosely based on it, Smash TV, I think it was called. So if anybody's not seen Running Man, check it out. Basically, it's a proper 80s dystopian film. This one surprised me, Chris, that one of the beautiful things about collecting watches is every day you're finding new watches. I had never heard of this watch. Did you hear of this, the Seiko Astronaut, the A8296019?
This looks similar to the data bank, but it's not that. Wow. No, I'm this is new for me.
So apparently this was worn in space.
Okay.
It was the final watch. They say it was the final watch on their list, and it has a special story. And it was picked by astronauts to be the watch on their wrist when flying into space.
On the Challenger STS-61?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he was a Dutch citizen that took it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then it went up with a German astronaut, Reinhard Ferrer.
And yeah, he wore. That's the guy that wore the Zin 140.
Oh, really?
On that same mission, yeah. That's interesting.
He was like doubling
this.
up.
This is why you take 2 watches to space, Sam.
For you, when you're in space for 8 minutes.
Because then you're like, well, I took this watch to space. I wonder. We should start. How much money do you think we can get? So Sam and I are going to go to space, and we're going to wear 8 watches.
Yeah.
Who would like to be the first watch thing in space? We will help you out.
First watch review YouTubers in space.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you have a particular model that you would like to see flown, space trials will begin shortly. It's great.
Well, guys, let us know what you think of those stories in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Please head on over to our Facebook group and become a member. There's some great conversation we've been having over there. As always, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.